Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello, welcome to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. Mikey, Stafford and Rory O'Neill with you as always. And we're joined by an Irish Times access of Kevin McStay and Malachy Clerkin this week. So this is paper of record meets national broadcaster.
Yeah.
This is the establishment right here, people.
It makes a change from the Examiner.
Well, how are we all doing, gentlemen? And I'll get on to the Examiner.
We're flying.
Great.
Yeah.
Good, Mikey.
Our friend of the podcast, John Fogarty, who we have on occasionally when we don't have our friends from Delir Street here, he's tweeting this morning and last night that Greg McCabe of Armagh had his one-match ban held up by the CAC last night. That's the Central Appeals Committee, for those of you who aren't into GA acronyms. And he has just tweeted a little while ago, Kevin, that Tyrone reluctantly, it must be said, are not appealing their 4 red cards. So it looks like the GA have backed up, or the disciplinary committee is backing up David Goff's new hardline regime.
When you hear reluctantly, what that really means is they've done the maths and they haven't a chance, essentially, and therefore backed away from it, keeping a little bit of face. But I would say I'm delighted that the sending offs have held up, if you like, because it is Colin mentioned it on the night show that night. It's a horrible, slobbery part of the GAA that it seems to be getting worse. The funny thing in this whole matter, you and I discussed it, Rory, the day after, is this rule has been in the book for 100 years. It's not like David Goff discovered it last Sunday week. But what I'd be hoping is that's the standard. That now, so we're back to consistency now. That would be the standard that the referees adhere to. And I have a sense that maybe Croke Park have put that on the referees' meeting agenda to say, this is where it's at now, guys. We've set the bar very high in terms of contributing to a melee, and if it was able to stack up, it means a couple of things. The referee wrote his report very well and carefully, and joined the dots, which is good, because normally there's a bit of slackness in the reportage, and that's a technicality and it's flung out. So that's good from David Goff for sure. He was entitled to do what he did. He did it, and then getting the backing, lads, it goes to show you that the court of public opinion. Cullum coming out early and giving David Goff his backing, it all does add up. There's no question about that. There is a media aspect to it. That there comes a moment, and the referee gets backed. If the narrative went the other way, and it was all negative against the ref, I suppose the only thing I can't answer, and we won't be able to answer, is why was it 4-1? The row didn't look as unbalanced as 4-1, but David took up a very good position and watched it very carefully. So he knows the answer to that. I didn't see the ref's report.
Yeah.
But 4-1 was the only thing that was a little bit funny about it. Other than that, delighted that it passed muster, and that the sanctions were upheld.
Yeah, we don't want to get back. We don't want to re-referee it anyway, Malachy. It's been discussed a fair bit. Do Tyrone deserve some credit here, Malachy, for not taking this to the 11th hour, to the Friday night, to the DRA, to the to the QCs and senior councils, etc., etc.?
Well, I mean, I suppose they do to a certain extent, but I mean, 2 factors feed into that. Kevin's exactly right. I guess if they thought that they had a rock solid winnable case, they probably would have. And B, if this was the weekend of an Ulster Championship match, of course they would. Like, it's a league game, it's a league weekend. What do they care? They don't let it be a distraction. Get it over with. Get it out of the way. Funny enough, Kevin, I actually, the 4-1 thing, you're right. It is the slightly quirky part of it, but in a way, I think it's nearly the best part of it, because at least then that this was done for a reason.
He didn't just level it up.
Exactly. This was done for a reason. That he stood back and decided, I am going to prosecute specific infractions here. I'm not just going to pick two heads from either side and throw them off and, okay, the headline
eye for an eye,
standings off, eye for an eye, all that usual old GAA shite. You could see the fourth one is so ridiculously outbalanced that he clearly decided, okay, I am looking for specific stuff here, stuff that will stand up when the appeals come. I know I am in charge of this situation. And I think of all the things that feed into this, that's the best. That the referee decided on specific infractions that he knew he would be able to stand over, that he knew he'd be able to word properly in his report. And this is how it's supposed to work. This is exactly what is supposed to happen. And we're going to get to the weekend with a bit, hopefully now, and there's nothing else about it. And look, at the back of it all, you're right, Kevin. Like it wasn't a flying boxing match. There wasn't blood spilled. There wasn't, it wasn't. But it's one of these things that, God Almighty, why does it have to be in the sport? Like, what's the point of it? Like, if this is the beginning of, in a couple of years' times, like if there's other incidences like this and the referee's report is stood over, this is in utopia. But like if referees do this and it stops this carry on, then are we going to be sitting here in 10 years' time going, Jesus, you'd miss the Irish Muslims lads. They were great. They were great days, weren't they?
Yeah.
Nobody really particularly wants them.
Yeah.
So,
and Mikey, a big thing for me with this is, just like the lads just mentioned, is the fact that the judiciary have backed up the referee, and it's not before time. It's actually really essential that this happened.
The dog is wagging his tail for a change.
I was like last Friday, and it's a subject that I think on League Sunday at 7 on the Sunday game, where we might have a bit more space come championship, that we will get into. There is a crisis in refereeing. There's a huge problem in refereeing recruitment, right? There's referees falling off the map to just, they're packing up the whistle. They're getting fed up. They're not getting the support. It's a feed of abuse for what, 20, 40 euro and maybe your dinner on the way home. And last Friday or last Thursday, I was looking specifically about 14 counties all tweeted more or less the exact same message about refereeing recruitment. It was almost like it was a coordinated social media assault, because somebody obviously from further up the food chain says, we need to start pulling the finger out here. And if you look at the referees that are assigned this weekend, where are the new ones? I mean, Joe McQuillan, from what I was told, was meant to retire maybe 2 years ago. He's out again in a Division 1 game. Maurice Deegan is still going. Like, all of these are good referees, right? But where's the new guys coming up through the ranks? Where's the quality? And we are very quick to criticize these people. But the criticism, in my view, a lot of the time, belies the fact that that's actually a counterproductive measure to recruitment for better quality to come in.
Rory, if I could add a little bit to that, I'd say one of the most disheartening moments in a referee's career must be when you adjudicate on a lousy incident and you red card a player and he absolutely deserves it, and then within 6-7 days it's not backed up and it's overturned. I was watching the All-Ireland club semi-final. There was a Kilcoo lad at the end. You remember the free that?
Oh, yeah. Dylan Ward, I'd say.
It was one of the Brannigans. I can't remember. I think it was one of the Brannigans, if memory serves. And there was a relatively new referee, not a bad. I think he's called.
Oh, he's good. He's very good for Kildare.
I like him. I think he has a lot of potential.
Very good.
Yeah. And now I didn't see the specifics of the incident, but he was absolutely.
Brendan Cawley, I think.
Yeah, Brendan Cawley, that's him. Yeah. And he red carded him. And I just saw a few days later dribbling through the paper or online somewhere, that card was overturned. I didn't see any reason for it. I didn't see any what the committee said, why they rescinded it. I don't know, and maybe there's a perfectly good reason for it, but it just said to me, geez, there's an up and coming referee now on TV. It was live on TG Cahir, I think, and here he is now, and he's just left naked now to the public again. Plonker. How did he make such a hames of a call?
Yeah. In an All-Ireland semi-final.
That is the downside of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we have to get real here in that I often hear managers, you hear pundits, you hear players, you hear all sorts of people in the media, ourselves included, being ultra critical of referees and this and that. And then they don't get the support that they actually need from their own governing body when they do make big calls and big decisions. And then we wonder why the quality and hasn't improved and the standard hasn't improved. Well, I'd say half of that reason is because lads
it has improved,
and it has improved.
It has.
But if you want to put more depth and more quality into anything, you're going to have to attract these people in. I mean, even in our own, we got a message from the county board recently saying if you don't supply a referee, we're going to disbar you from competing in some matches. This is the crisis that is starting to manifest itself in refereeing recruitment. And I think from a general sense, just to go back to the original point, sorry, Mikey, is I'm just delighted that it held up because it sends a good message for once.
What are you going to do, Rory? You're going to have the worst GA raffle in the world where every member's name goes in a hat and whoever gets pulled out is the referee.
Well, we're going to have to come up with something, but I think maybe one of the solutions is, I think might be the easiest solution is we're just going to have to increase compensation. If people feel that they're going to go out there and all they're going to get is abuse, and this is very pertinent, by the way, in the underage games, it's actually nearly worse in juvenile matches. €20 from each team. Is that enough to go out there and have people shout and roar abuse at you? I would ask.
You talk about Joe McQuillan and Marcy. It's almost like the situation the Catholic Church is in. I have an uncle who's a parish priest, and it's very hard to retire if you're a parish priest, lads. I'll tell you that. They don't let you go. They don't let you go easy. Well, you do a couple of matches. Yeah.
They're junior masses. Junior masses.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't have to do the big ones anymore, but can you? Yeah. So I suppose actually let's start with Division 4 for a change, because we're talking about fresh blood in the refereeing world, Malachy, and Maggie Farrell is getting her. Yeah. It came up during the week, and one of the lads said, better do a story on Maggie Farrell. I said, we should. There's almost a template for it now, because Maggie Farrell has done so many firsts that hopefully this summer we might be writing about her first championship game as well, because by all accounts, she's a fine referee, and she's going to be in Park Sean McDermott for Leitrim and London, which in its own right is a big game.
Yeah, but this is all very overdue, Maggie Farrell, she...
Is it even that big a deal, Malachy?
No, it's not. But it feeds into exactly the conversation that we were just having. You're talking about, the crisis in getting referees in. There's 50% of the population out there. They could, there's plenty. They could referee too. But would you send your young daughter out and say, listen, will you go and referee a game? Come on,
No linesman, with no linesman, no umpires.
No linesman,
You've got 40 lads on one side, 40 lads on another, screaming and roaring abuse.
So look, it's not. Anyway, that all feeds into it. Look, she's bored herself of being the story when we talk about these.
Joy Neville had the same thing in rugby. There was a story every time.
Yeah, exactly. But look, it's great. It's fantastic. The game itself is actually hilariously a huge game, London, I cannot. London are the story of the league almost to me so far. People, I don't know if people really understand what the pandemic did to the London GAA team, Whereas whatever about every other county team, going through the first lockdown in Zooms and stuff like that, or getting to the summer of 2020 and being able to come together and do some sort of training together. Michael Maher, who's over the London team, literally did not see any of his players for 15 months, because it's not like, you're not going to bump into them walking down the street in Streatham or Dagenham or wherever in London. The London GAA community is sprinkled through a city with however million people living in it, covering however many 1,000 hectares or whatever it is. So look, they went 2 years without a game, 2 bloody years without playing a football match together, and they have won their first 2 games. It's just ridiculous in Division 4, because the thing is with London were always the team that never get to play a pre-season game. So they don't play in the O'Byrne Cup or the McKenna Cup or anything like that. So by the time they hit the league, they're already at a disadvantage, even in a normal year. I went through it there one year. They haven't, before this year, they hadn't won their first game in the league since something like 2007, and that was because they played Kilkenny in their first game. Like, they always get beaten in the first couple of games because they always have a lot to bring together. The idea now is that they're going to Carrick unbeaten to play Andy Moore's Leitrim is fantastic, and they are like,
have they new players, Malachy? I don't want to put you on the spot
enormous.
They have a lot more native players now, so to speak.
They have an enormous turnover of players, Kevin. I think he was telling me that they have 11 of the players that he had in 2020. So,
okay. But are the London lads?
There's a few. What the big thing for them is that they now have a junior team that's exclusively made of UK-born lads.
Okay.
So they have a feeder system from that into it. But no, it's mostly, I think of the 15 that'll start on Sunday, there's probably about 5 UK-born lads. But the rest of them are like they're
Mayo,
they are who you are. They are who they've always been. They've just switching in and switching out lads that come,
And he's London born himself, Malachy.
He is, yeah. He talks like that. Oh, yeah, it's great to have it, man.
It's
great.
The GAA cliches with a London accent, mate. It's got under no illusions.
I was about 10 or 11 years ago when I worked at the Irish Daily Mail. I went over there to do a story about football in London, and I went over to meet a guy who I used to play football with myself in Wexford, Lloyd Colfer, who played for Wexford, and then went on to play for London, and he was a games development officer there, and I went around with him to about 3 or 4 schools, and it's fascinating. It's just amazing that he just rocks up into this school and takes whatever class it is, first form, second form, and it's not the Irish kids. It's not like the kids of Irish parents. It's all the kids, and they all go out and they play go games for 40 minutes. It's their PE for that day or that week or whatever. And he says there's not a school in his catchment area that he went to where like the uptake wasn't 100%, or there wasn't just a huge enthusiasm for it. So Kevin, no one's suggesting that London GAA are ever going to rival Arsenal or Chelsea in terms of affection, but in terms of as a grassroots sport in pockets of London that maybe are overlooked by rugby or association football, that there's growth potential there, because clearly, like, we're not all stupid over here. We're not playing a sport that's not fun to play or isn't a good physical activity. It's a game that people can take up and enjoy, and it doesn't matter a squat whether your granny is from Barras and Ossory or not.
Yeah, but you'd imagine, when you were mentioning the go games there, you could imagine there's probably no other sport better suited to young lads full of energy and madness on a class break for PE, clattering into each other and all the different skills that are involved in Gaelic football. It's perfectly set for a gang of lads from London crashing into themselves for 40 minutes. On a serious note, I've been kind of listening to this story for a long time, 30, 40 years maybe, and different GPOs. I mean, was it a Galway lad there some years ago?
Gotcha.
Yeah,
he's still there, I think, isn't he?
And they were doing Trojan work. And I know the Goggins lad was trying really hard, was common native here, and but they never seem to get critical mass. In other words, they don't get out of Division 3 or out of Division 4. This would be, I would say, probably their best chance in Yonks. And this weekend with Cavan playing, let me just check. Cavan playing
Sligo. Top of the table clash.
And Leitrim playing London. Like, it's round 3 and it really feels like a moving Sunday in terms of Division 4. That, if London were to get another pair of points, now they'll probably be unlucky this year because Sligo Cavan certainly shouldn't be in it. I mean, you could say, where have Tipperary gone? They've fallen off the cliff completely. I make them the 3rd lowest ranked team in the country. And only a few years ago, Jill, on a dark night in Croke Park with the lights off, Tipperary were playing in the All-Ireland series, so it's an amazing division. It's a great story how far does it go, Malachy? Our lads.
I know it doesn't go. Like gravity will take over now in the next.
It's already a story, though, Malachy. That's the thing.
And that's fine.
what
But
you're saying.
That's the thing. Like I just couldn't get over. I fully expected them to take 3 or 4 hidings to start off with. The idea that they could go and win their first 2 games is ludicrous. They had 800 people in Ruislip last weekend or the weekend before. They're
free gate.
They're making it a free gate for the whole league to get people back, because they've had no games to watch, for 2 years. So
I mean, there'll be a cracking crowd in Carrick on Sunday. Oh yeah, that'll be buzzing now, because it's a great ground once you get 5,000-6,000 people into it. It's a massive buzz there. Yeah.
Let's work our way up the divisions then. So we'll leave ourselves with 5 minutes for Division 1, which is usually what we do to the lower divisions. Division 3 is, Rory, we have, if London are the story of the league so far, and rightly so, I think Limerick have been incredible as well. 2 wins from 2, and kind of been seen as perhaps, whatever day in the sun they had was kind of past, and Lee is kind of pushing a rock up a hill again like Sisyphus, but and the hurlers take all their oxygen, and the oxygen that's left is taken by Munster Rugby. It's hard to be a Limerick footballer sometimes, but beat Louth this weekend, and that's 3 from 3, and they're looking like being in the Sam Maguire, whatever that means. It means you're not in the Tailteann Cup, which at the moment seems to be the name of the game, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing in the long run.
He's done an unbelievable job, Billy Lee. I think they will win that game this weekend against Louth. It's at home. They have they're in very good physical shape. They've obviously decided, a friend of mine is telling me they've decided to take football a little bit more seriously. And they have really good, strong pockets of football. If you head down towards kind of sort of West Limerick, heading towards the Kerry border, there's some excellent, there's some really, football is quite strong in and around that area, and they have Paul Kinnerk gone in now to kind of oversee it. That man is a genius. So I think in terms of putting them on the right road, in terms of their conditioning, their fitness, all of those things now, all those boxes are going to be ticked correctly. And I think from a Munster point of view, I think it's only to be welcomed, because as Kevin just mentioned a few minutes ago there, given the fact that Tipperary have fallen off a cliff, I think it's probably no harm that there is somebody else that's kind of comes up from the pack to try and make something out of the Munster Championship. Look, the reality is Munster football is dominated by one team. Let's be honest. There isn't a duopoly, and there probably never was. But look, if Limerick can kind of come and make it slightly more competitive again, if they could manage to get out of that division, move up to Division 2 with Clare, I think it'll give Munster football a little bit of a shot in the arm. Again, I suppose, look, the story in a similar sense, but maybe at a higher plane. Just as Kevin also mentioned, it probably has there's legs to it that will eventually run out, because I suppose the depth and the quality isn't there. But they're very well organized.
Rory, tell me this.
They should.
Sorry, Rory, but do you think this is going to be interesting now over the next couple sort of months, sort of 6 weeks, as the leagues sort of take shape, especially the bottom of Division 2 and the top of Division 3.
Yeah.
The Talteann Cup will come into view somewhere along the way. I wonder, I don't know this, but I wonder, is there any part of Billy Lee that will be going, would we not be better now winning the Talteann Cup?
Yeah.
Than
that thought went through my head as I was talking there. Yeah, it's
going up into a qualifier and getting.
That's a very good point.
No, and look, I genuinely don't know the answer to this, because the inherent in that is, are we better not getting out of Division 3? And sure, you're not going to be telling players with a chance of promotion, look, we need to ease off here, lads, because we want to win the Talteann Cup. But it's gonna, and by the same token, some of the teams down the bottom of Division 2 is relegation is shit. Yeah, it's a bad start to the year. But with 2 games to go, are you going, well, Jesus, lads, we're going to get hockey, and when it comes to the provincials, are we better off?
Lads always said, Malachy, that what they want is a crack in the Sam Maguire Championship. Yeah. My fear, actually, for the way the national conversation is going, is that the Talteann Cup is now becoming, we speak about it in the pejorative all the time. Like,
that's exactly what came into my head there as Mikey was saying it. You know, that people, that we frame the conversation as, well, listen, you don't want to be down. You want to be relegated.
There's a kind of a wooden spoon element to it.
That is wrong, and that is wrong of all of us. I don't think we're talking like that. But in fairness, it has to be given a chance to blossom at least. Now, I'm on the record as saying the fact that it's not the All-Ireland curtain raiser, I find appalling, and nobody will argue otherwise. I've heard nonsense coming from Croke Park. I don't buy it at all. It was, to be lost in the build-up of All-Ireland final week. Nonsense.
Absolute nonsense.
But it is a big task for the GAA to solve this Talteann Cup, to launch it and to nourish it and make sure it flourishes.
That's a very interesting thing. You mentioned the word launch there, Kevin, right? Because I'm just looking ahead now in relation to Sunday game. The Talteann Cup starts on the same weekend that the Munster football final is on. All 4 provincial football finals take place.
Champions League final.
The Champions League final. The Champions Cup final. The Munster football final, because of this scheduling issue, is 3:00 on a Saturday. The Leinster football final is 5:00 on a Saturday.
They could play both of those at 5:00 in the morning.
Yeah,
Rory.
I know.
It wouldn't affect the crowd, like.
It's certainly, because look, the reality is it's going to be, well, you might get a game in Leinster, all right, but it's just the launch of it, I think, is going to be slightly problematic again. And then, if how serious teams are going to take it. There's a lot of questions around it, and you just hope for, hope's sake that
it's just interesting. I just wonder when let's say, for instance, Limerick win it, or let's just pick a county, and we're talking to them in Croke Park after they've lifted the Talteann Cup. Will we hear from some team that says, yeah, listen, in February we had a team meeting and we said, this is what we're going to win this year? I'd love to know, is that conversation happening in any county squad anywhere in the country at the minute?
Well, Division 4 squad, it's your most tangible aim.
I'll give you a little angle on it. And this happened in my own time when you're fighting to get out of Division 2. And I'm talking about Roscommon now. This is my experience. Full in the knowledge that you're probably going to yo-yo the minute you get up to Division 1. You're just on that balance, Team 7, Team 8, Team 9, and it's going to be really difficult to stay with the big boys. But there is no sense, I think, think of a competitive footballer. He wants to get out of Division 3. Yeah. If he's in the Talteann Cup, it means one thing: he didn't get out of it. Okay, he wants to get to Division 2. I think if you're doing the audit at the end of the season and saying, well, we're Division 2 champs, and our Division 3 champs, we're going into Division 2. We played the All-Ireland, got beaten. We got a bit of a touch in the qualifiers. All right, it was a bit of a sour end, but lads, it was a great season. I think that's a better credit balance than we didn't get out of Division 3. And we might or might not have won the Talteann Cup, because there's going to be some big fry in that. If that's not a contradiction, there's going to be some like Down, Meath, Offaly. A few of these boys are Cavan, obviously, if they don't get to the final. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
So there's going to be a few teams in it that Limerick mightn't ordinarily beat anyway.
Yeah. So then you roll on to Division 2, where I think, Malachy, your argument, it might be a little bit harder to make that argument that because a team is in Division 2 and perhaps has a perception, Meath are in my head here, as being a, God help us, a top-tier team. It's very hard to imagine Meath saying, Jesus, you know what, a drop down to Division 3 and a spell in the Talteann Cup would be good for us.
Yeah.
Because if they lose to Down this weekend, they're staring down the barrel.
Yeah, I wouldn't be putting that to Andy McEntee now.
Go on and record it.
Your helmet.
After whatever happens in the weekend. I haven't seen any of. I can't believe they're this bad. How have they been? I
think they're missing a good few, Malachy.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think they are key fellas, key players, and you want them confidence and form.
Yeah. Like in all our conversations here, we have to remember, like, basically teams have played 2 games in 7 days. Like,
and it was a tough start. Galway home, Galway away, Roscommon at home.
We can't be making judgments on whole seasons on 8 days evidence.
In the Meath case, Malachy, I think you can't overlook the carry on of the Meath board during the summer. You just can't. I mean, what they did to Andy. And I'm a fan of Andy. I like him as a person. I know he sometimes lets himself down a little bit on the line, and so on. But he's genuinely a well-intentioned guy, Meath fanatic, obviously. But the bullshit, the nonsense, it was outrageous what his board attempted to do, and that has fed into it. It sure has to, if you think about it. Like the bacon slicer gets closer to the backside, and the pressure involved in that, and now he's under immense pressure. That it'd be hard to see the league out if things don't improve, like whether they'd make it as a group to the championship at all. So it's a massive game on Sunday for them. Now, Meath do tend to react when they're backed into the wall, so it'll be very interesting to see how Sunday goes. But
last week, Colm O'Rourke said on here, he said he knows Meath football as well as anyone, and God knows he does. He says that he can't think of a single club footballer in Meath who should be involved in that squad who isn't. Well, he said there's no one else to bring in, whether there's lads who've retired from inter-county or whatever, but he said there's nobody that Andy McEntee is overlooking as far as he can see.
Well, the Brian Mentons, the key leaders from Killian O'Sullivan, I haven't even seen his name, so I don't even know, is it injury or they stepped down or walked away? I'm not following it closely enough. Just that their effort against Roscommon, I said this to you, Rory, the effort against Roscommon in the first half was just, and the effort against Cork in the round 1 was just not mad. It was, for a senior intercounty team to be at that level of endeavour, it was kind of shocking. And they're in
a Galway in round 1.
Galway, but 45 minutes without a score against
Galway. Excuse me. And that was really poor stuff. And so you'd expect something. I thought to be a backlash against Roscommon. There wasn't. We'll know this weekend, won't we?
Yeah, Malachy, you poo-pooed this when I said it earlier. Before we
doesn't sound like me, man.
Yeah, before we started recording. Oh, you're all nice when the cameras are rolling. All right. I said that the winner of Roscommon and Clare can exhale and kind of safely look forward to the Sam Maguire they may or may not want to compete in, because Roscommon would have 6 points from 3 games and Clare would have 5 points from 3 games, and given the paucity of what we've seen thus far from Offaly, Meath and down, it'd be hard to see them getting sucked into a relegation battle.
Yeah, but I can't fathom that they would be in one on any level. Like Clare,
Clare were being. People were talking about Clare before this started as is this the year?
Jesus, I wasn't. Like Clare, a fundamentally established Division 2 team for 4 years, 5 years at this.
It could be a Division 1 team next year.
Hugely competitive.
Clare are nobody's fools. I really have no idea why people still kind of go, Clare could be in trouble this year. Like, Clare are a proper football team.
So you see Monaghan's situation in Division 1 in Clare, this is why you feel so passionately about it.
No. Trust me.
I think actually
I feed the Monaghan relegation worries every day.
They should feeds into it.
Clare should have 4 points on the board already.
Well, they should, indeed.
They were very unlucky.
What feeds into it a lot is that if you look down below it, we keep thinking because of tradition and saying, oh Jesus, this has to turn around. Cork, Down and Meath are going to do something, but they're not doing anything. But in our brains, in our heads, we still place them because of the tradition and all that nonsense.
You're exactly right, Kevin. I give you one. The week at the start of the league, I couldn't believe it. Like I'm not a big one for proclaiming bookies odds around the place, but they do at least give a snapshot of what the sort of general thinking is. I could not believe in the lead up to the first game, Roscommon against Cork. Cork were like 1-2 favourites.
I thought that was astonishing, Malachy.
I could not believe it. Like Roscommon.
That's the point I'm making.
That you're 100% right. 100% right. Roscommon, who have been in Division 1, who are a hardened league team.
They were without a good contingent of players.
They still have a lot of depth.
So are Cork. So are Cork. Like the Bars lads were playing.
We're still in,
A lot of injuries.
Like the day before, perhaps. Yeah.
And Cork,
when last did they win a Munster, Rory? When last did Cork win?
2012.
2012. So that's what, 10 years ago now.
Heading for 10 years.
But Cork were also a young team with a new manager, trying out loads of new players. The Bars lads were away, all that sort of stuff. And like they were nearly unbackable favourites. Odds-on favourites against a hardened team that have been in Division 1.
What's the opposite of recency bias? That's what the GA has.
Yeah, that's it.
Archive bias.
we do, yeah. We've got a retro bias. So Division 2 is and will remain interesting.
I do think that's going to be a cracking match though, that Roscommon Clare game. And I think Roscommon are, to my mind, I mean, they'll have all the Podrick Pierce's lads back now, I would imagine. They'll have gotten their break, and they'll have the Faith Locks. Is that the name of the club, Kev? With the Bertas? Yes. Sorry, my apologies to that club.
And I saw were you watching the Sigerson last night? Young Healing came on, made a decisive contribution. He's kind of an up-and-coming corner forward here in Roscommon, really talented young fella. And so he's going to be in the mix now as well.
Roscommon are in great shape, and I mean, in Clare, looking at the Clare match, certainly the game against Cork down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. I mean, the two lads, they have Keelan Sexton and what's the lad centre forward? Owen Cleary, is it?
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. They're as good as they would get on any county team. Any team.
The idea was when Gary Brennan retired, it's all over.
Yeah. They were never. We're sure they have another lad playing in the middle of the field, an absolute giant, Cathal O'Connor, who's
Well, I'll tell you one other thing about Clare that when you look around teams that sort of fall down the divisions, look through that Clare team and look back at pick a fixture at random from 5 years ago. Clare don't lose players.
They don't. You're correct.
You look around
David Tubridy's still playing. Yeah.
You look around a lot of those Division 3 teams, Division 4 teams. Like I'm doing a piece.
Because it's the same manager all the time.
It's a great sign, but it's also a great sign of the manager. And I've often thought, look, maybe he's happy in Clare, but I've often wondered about him when jobs come up. Like the Galway job or this job or big jobs around the country.
This is just more of a Rory. You're doing down Clare again. But
I know. But you'd never hear Colm Collins' name linked with any of these jobs. And
I think everybody knows he's a really good manager.
Yeah,
smashing.
It's just he's Rory, completely
interest, are you sending a camera to Roscommon? The natives will savage you.
No.
They've waited up till midnight now, a few nights.
So you can tell them not to bother this week.
They could join the queue with Antrim and Westmeath and
anger.
Let Rory enjoy his week before he gets inundated with abuse next Monday again.
Monday you'll get it in the
people knew now. Anyway.
All right, sure. We know where there will be cameras this weekend, which is Division 1, which we've left till last because we're real football men.
Sorry, Mikey. There is cameras actually on that other Division 2 game that we didn't mention, which is Derry against Cork, and I think Derry, as we mentioned before, Derry are another really big story coming out of this league, and I'd imagine they do a big number on Cork up there.
Cork are favourites though, yeah.
Yeah.
They've won more All Ireland. So let's look at Division 1. Malachy, the papers, a few of them anyway, have kind of pieces about can the Dubs rebuild while going through stinking form. I was thinking about it myself this morning. I said Dessie Farrell's most significant managerial job before the Dublin senior job and winning an All Ireland in his first year was as a wildly successful Dublin under-21 manager, where his job was to blood new players and build teams on a yearly basis, and he was very good at it. So in some ways, surely he's the right man in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, like he's. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that they have the man in place to do it. I think, like, even though I just said, we shouldn't be judging things after 2 games, but I don't think we necessarily, I think that the difference between, say, the way we're talking about Dublin after their 2 games and the way people are talking about, say, Limerick hurlers after their 2 games is that this is a continuation of what we saw last year for Dublin, whereas the league is just, a bit of a write-off for the Limerick hurlers. They have been really, really bad. And what has really struck me about, I was actually, I haven't been to one of their games, but I've watched them both, every minute of them, is just how much the invention that we used to see in Gaelic football started with the Dubs and trickled down, through Jim Gavin's time, through J.O.'s time, through all the little bits and pieces, whether it was, working out possession, whether it was keeping forwards out on the wings, whether it was setting screens and players coming around on the loop, whether it was, using Cian O'Sullivan as the sweeper and people dropping in that little pocket, all that little stuff. They were so visibly highly coached and drilled. Cluxton's kickouts, all of that. And for a full decade, the innovation in the game came from them. And now you watch them and it's all so static. And so you're looking at them and going, whatever about, losing leaders and whatever about bringing in new players and all that sort of stuff, where's the new ideas? And they just, that is what has struck me most. It struck me most about them all the way through the Leinster Championship last year. I was at the Wexford game down in Wexford Park, where Wexford essentially just held them at arm's length and sowed into them for an hour. And, the Dubs were never going to lose it, but you were just looking at them going, they're so staid here. They're just so lacking in vigor and vim and whatever, and all that sort of stuff that they led the way on. And now you look at them and you're going, this is really interesting, because who are the player, who is going to get them out of it? They have the access of, John Small, Brian Fenton, Brian Howard, Kieran Kilkenny and Con when he comes back. And of course you ought to be able to build an All-Ireland winning team around that. 30 other counties would love to have the crisis that Dublin have. But the point is, who is around them? Ryan Pascal starts the first game of the year as their sort of strike inside forward. Ryan Pascal is 29. He's not 22, Cormac Costello has had lots of, he's exactly the same age as Kieran Kilkenny within a month or two. He has had a decade to show that he is the guy, and now he has it. And he, to be fair to him, he does look the most dangerous of their sort of snappy inside forwards. And yet, okay, he got injured after the first game, but you're still going, okay, if it's Cormac Costello is their big guy inside, I don't know. I think the rest of the country can probably handle that. So I'm absolutely fascinated by them. I really am. For the first time, I covered every game in the Jim Gavin era and got so bored of it. Got so bored of the excellence, so bored of the winning as a matter of course. Because they were so much better than everybody else. I'm so fascinated with them now because
you just needed a bit of chassis.
But no, it's not even the chassis. I just want to see where's the problem solving coming out of. What are they doing with these guys who Dessie has put 2 or 3 years into the likes of Tom Lahiff, Sean Bugler, a few others around the middle there.
Robbie McDade,
Robbie McDade, all these guys, and you're kind of going, right, are you all just cookie cutter players, one not too different from the other? Where's the point of difference? Okay, we can't be looking, there's no fact. Jack McCaffrey is a complete one-off, so you can't be saying who's the next Jack McCaffrey. But Tom Lahiff has played in the position that Jack McCaffrey played in. That's such a wild lurch in a different direction. So what's to become of them? As I say, I'm completely fascinated with them.
Yeah, and they're up against their old foes, Kev, your lot, who are thus far making light of some pretty stereotypical lousy Mayo luck.
Mayo will be delighted with their position in the league. 3 from 4. One of them certainly improbable. The Donegal point. They certainly snatched that one. But like snatched it because they were at the very end trying to snatch it. And that's Mayo, isn't it? And it was the league so far has been badly wanted by the group, I'd say, because there's still, they say they've come to terms with it and they've figured it out and they've talked about it, but I've not seen any valid explanation for their complete underperformance in the final. Despite all the analysis they've done, and James has been quite open about that and said, we've looked at it, we've learned from it, but nobody has told, I haven't read where, like, what did happen. Like, it was a very poor final performance by Mayo, but they flipped the coin now for the league and away from home. Like, all their games are essentially away from home, and they are away from home, and they're really getting stuck into it, and they meet Dublin now. You'd have to say at a pretty good time to meet Dublin because they're not sure. To add to Malachy's analysis and assessment, I keep reading about, when they get all their players back. Well, James McCarthy, Johnny Cooper, Mick Fitzsimons, they're 30 plus, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they're fabulous players, and have given incredible service. They're hugely talented players. But like, you don't want to be building your team around 3 veterans coming back sometime in April or whenever they're going to be back, and with the run into championship, that's going to have its own difficulties. So I think Mayo go to Croke Park, as they always do, delighted. You'd swear it was a lucky ground or something. Delighted to go to Croke Park, and
weird form of Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, 3-legged dog called lucky. But they're delighted to go. I was reading the Mayo News for my build up, and a lot of players coming back from injury, and they'll be happy enough with some of the new players as well.
Killian can't be too far away.
I think he's about maybe 2 league games away. I think that's what I read. Jason Doherty has made a bit of an impact since he came, which is marvellous for him. Tommy Conroy's loss knocked the oxygen completely out of me because I'm a fan.
Yeah,
I love what he does. I think he's just
getting better,
proper real corner forward. I really like him, and then what's happened to him is shocking. Owen McLaughlin played last night in Sigerson, so that tells me the Monaghan belt was he did something to his knee or his ankle, I think. So he's fine. So yeah, it'll be an amazing game. I mean, the idea that Dublin are bottom of the league, I'll give 30 seconds of defence to Dublin. In the game that I was at, Malachy, the lads, the Kerry game down in Tralee, there was a moment, no more than a moment, but a few moments, the disallowed goal. Conor was totally within his right to do it, but 9 times out of 10 you get that.
It's a little unusual to see it.
Yeah, it was, but I mean, it was a very good call. Unfortunately, Niall Scully, one of their better players, was the guy that had to do the time. And then you'll recall around that period as well, I think it was only about 2 or 3 points in the game. It was a 1-score game for sure. Larkin O'Dell had a 2-on-1 with Dean Rock, wasn't it? And he
overplayed the hand pass,
overshot the runway, and and that was missed. So there was a moment in that game where Dublin were doing very nicely.
I don't know. Does that say though, Kevin? Does that say a little bit more about Kerry though? That maybe Kerry aren't.
Well, only 1 point in the second half. You'll remember that.
There's 1 or 2 things about Dublin though that do. I mean, look, I think you can't underestimate the value that somebody like James McCarthy has brought. Probably, in my view, pound for pound, the best player, the best Gaelic footballer over the last 10 or 15 years, just in terms of just consistency every single day that he goes out. But does he have the engine to deliver the kinds of performances that he
that's
did?
The point I was making to you, that, what is James McCarthy? Is he 34?
He's 32, but he's a lot of football played. He's there since 2011. He's there since the very, very beginning. That's what I'm saying
as well in their breakthrough.
That's why I kind of wonder, and I look at him and I say, look, to my mind, the first big problem that they have is at full back. Would James McCarthy be worth a shot just to go in and short things up?
No, he's too athletic for that.
But Kev, the point I'm making is if you try and get the box to box element out of James McCarthy at this stage, that engine is going to blow a lot faster than if you decide to try and mind him by maybe drifting him further back to field and getting an extra couple of
I
years.
think David Clifford's eyes would light up with James McCarthy at full back. Bring it on.
The other thing that I don't know whether it would be the kind of wild card that Dessie would play. And look, in fairness to the fella, I suppose he has had many opportunities already at an intercounty level. But if there's a better midfielder in Dublin playing at the moment, certainly at club level, than Craig Diaz, I haven't seen him. Obviously, Brian Fenton is the number one. But his performance is always true for...
Would he be big enough?
Well, I mean, like, he was near enough man of the match all the way through their Leinster campaign. He was outstanding.
Intercounty midfield is for Giants.
I think as well, though, Rory, his knees aren't great.
Maybe
he didn't last the full hour against Kilcoo last week, and it was because he basically brought himself off. But I know what you mean. Like, to try and get he was brilliant in that club final. Like, so
he was really good in the semi-final as well,
stylish as well.
And where's Padar O'Coffig Byrne gone?
That is a good question.
He's another man who was seen as the great big hope, as you said, Kev. He was the big man. He was going to be there, and I don't know. I haven't been following it close enough, but he's disappeared.
Brian Howard might end up as his partner, as
he has done before, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just before you move on, Mikey? Can I give you one stat? And you are very lucky that I'm giving you this, because this is going in the Irish Times on Saturday. But I'm banking on the fact that nobody listens to this podcast.
When Malachy read here, is it?
Can anybody take a guess the last time Mayo won a league game in Dublin?
In Dublin.
Was Kevin McStay playing?
No.
Croke Park or Parnell
Definitely
Park?
Not. Let's see now. Mayo won the league in 1972 or something.
Well,
I don't know.
It was 1971 is the last time Mayo won a league game. I've done a piece for the weekend.
Black and white TV.
Is it the same league that they won then in 72? It probably is.
No, I don't think so. No, sorry, I mean a league game against Dublin.
Yeah, I was going to say they won the final a couple of years ago.
Yeah. No, I mean a league game beat Dublin in the league in
Dublin.
Wow, that's 50 years ago.
It's 50 years, 50 seasons ago.
Well, we'll change that. We'll change that.
The intro to my piece on Saturday is Mayo's league record against Dublin is worse than you think, and you already think it's bad.
On that note, lads,
very good.
We might leave it. We didn't get to all the Division 1 games. You know what? That's fine, because we had a lovely chat about Division 4 and Division 3 and Division 2, and that's absolutely fine, and we can review them. Monaghan are going to Armagh. Tyrone, a weakened Tyrone are welcoming Kildare to Omagh, and Donegal are travelling to Kerry. So look, we know yourselves. Dublin v Mayo is on RTÉ2. Be plenty of coverage on the radio over the weekend and online. And you can read about it in the Irish Times as well if you want, but honestly...
We have the story.
We have the intro already, so don't bother. Thank you to Malachy, and thank you to Kevin, and thank you to Rory, and we will chat to you on Monday. Bye-bye.
How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar.